Grim Grinning Ghosts come out to forget it. So, Haunted Mansion, not The Haunted Mansion, is a 2023 film directed by Justin Simien, starring Lakeith Stanfield, Tiffany Haddish, Danny DeVito, Owen Wilson, Rosario Dawson, and Jamie Lee Curtis. And, what the hell was that? I was actually pretty excited about this because I wanted to see a new take on the Haunted Mansion story, and from what I was hearing and all the rumors when this was being created, is that this was going to actually be kind of scary. A little bit funny, but actually kind of frightening. I know it changed hands a few times with, like, Del Toro in the mix here and there, but I remember them talking about how the Hatbox Ghost was going to be the main villain, and that it was actually going to be frightening and not even so much for kids compared to the silliness of the Eddie Murphy 2003 version. If you're new to my channel, I actually did a Halloween special where I discussed The Haunted Mansion from 2003 starring Eddie Murphy, and I thought it was okay, but I didn't really recommend it. It had some funny things in it, and I do like the references from the ride that are in that movie, but it wasn't something that I was saying, go out and really see it. But this one, bruh. The 2003 movie had a little bit of charm to it. While it was a little overly silly, not scary at all, and some of the lines were a little groan-inducing, at least it had a little bit of charm, and of course, some heart to it, as Disney movies, especially in the 2000s, had. This one felt a little bit more hollow and dead, for a lack of a better term. The story of this one felt a little bit more like a generic haunted house movie. A family, Rosario Dawson and her son, move into a house, find out that it's haunted, and trying to use every way possible in order to try to get rid of the ghost. Try to use a priest, try to use a paranormal expert, and nothing seems to be working. But then they all end up having to stay in the mansion because whenever they enter and then leave, the ghosts follow them home, and then they have to, come back to the mansion until they finally figure out what the solution is in order to get rid of the ghosts. So that kind of sounds like more of your generic haunted house ghost story. Hey, we got to figure out why the ghosts are haunting here and how to get rid of them. Whereas 2003's Haunted Mansion, which I'm going to be making a lot of comparisons of in this review here, it felt more like a murder mystery style. Who did it? Why was Elizabeth killed? Why are these ghosts here? How do we figure this out? What is the solution to this? And that was kind of more in line with what I felt the Haunted Mansion was, as opposed to what this is, which just felt like a shoehorned love letter to New Orleans and ghost stories. Now, I've never been to New Orleans, but I've always wanted to visit. I hear it's a very lovely place, and I know they have a rich history when it comes to hauntings and ghosts and cemeteries and everything like that. So, yeah, this was kind of the perfect setting, not to mention in actual Disneyland. The Haunted Mansion is based in New Orleans Square. Makes sense. I think we see the connection here. But this was just a CGI messy slog fest of just over effects that were so in your face and over the top, and it's parts that felt that they ran too long and parts that felt that they were just way too short. The runtime was a little long, clocking in at 2 hours, which really isn't that long for a movie, but for this type of caliber movie, it was a little too much. And what bothers me the most about this is that in the times that it was slowed down a little, when it wasn't over the top and in your face with all these CGI effects and everything, it was actually kind of nice. I liked learning a little bit more about the message that they were getting, which, spoiler alert, I'm sorry, this story is about grief. With the original movie being a story about a murder mystery and finding out, who killed Elizabeth, where this one is a story of grief and how to let go and what happens to our loved ones and everything like that, which on the surface sounds like a pretty good concept, but unfortunately, again, they only touch on it in little bits and pieces, and during those times, it's actually kind of nice. Our main character, Ben, grieves the loss of his wife, and when he talks about it, it's beautiful and it's very touching. And Tiffany Haddish's character talks about her mother. And I really, really like that. Unfortunately, they don't really stay on that much because I don't know if they didn't think it was going to be enjoyable for kids, which let me tell you, I probably wouldn't take a kid to this. There was a couple kids in the theater and no, it was kind of too spooky for them, but not spooky enough for an adult. It didn't have a good enough audience for this, which was, again, an upsetting thing because this was advertised as, hey, this is the spooky Haunted Mansion movie that we're all waiting for, and it really wasn't. It wasn't that spooky. It was too spooky for kids, but not spooky enough for an adult, which with a PG-13 rating. I got more afraid from like lots of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies with the spooky skeleton ghost that they had from Curse of the Black Pearl. And, the scariest thing of all was the script for that, Pirates 5. But the other thing the 2003 Eddie Murphy film had was charm. There was no charm to this. There was nothing endearing about it. It was very generic. It was just your generic ghost movie, which had a little bit of Haunted Mansion set pieces in there. When it came to how the 2003 movie put in the Haunted Mansion set pieces, what they would do is that they would have somebody maybe walking around, and then like Eddie Murphy could go past the bus or the changing portraits whenever lightning whenever lightning striked, and then the portraits would change. It was actually kind of a neat touch, and we didn't have to dwell on it for that long. We could move along because there was other important things that we would need to do. Yeah, there were other parts of it, like the floating instruments, part of Madame Leota's thing, which I talked about in my review, and yeah, that didn't make much sense. But at least it was still kind of fun compared to this, where we see the floating instruments roaming around the hallway, which even more so doesn't make any sense. Yeah, there are certain of the sillier elements from the 2003 movie that are not present as well. Probably the biggest one here is the singing bus, which of course is a huge part of the ride for I know a lot of people, and they were not present in this. I don't know, I guess they wanted to make it a little bit more serious with it, but there was still comedy in this because it is a Disney movie. Again, it didn't work. It just did not work, and it was very upsetting to me because I wanted this to work. The CGI in this was pretty bad for Disney standards as well. In the original movie, I did bring this up before about how much I loved the corpses in the morgue and the design of them and how frightening they were for a PG-rated Disney film. Those were frightening. Those were people in costumes. That was scary. These CGI ghosts and whatever, they weren't frightening or anything. Nothing. They were not menacing enough to me. And something I'm going to reiterate, again, something that I brought up in my prior review, the human characters are boring in this. Just as they were in the 2003 film, these characters are boring. I didn't care about them. I didn't care about the character Ben. I didn't care about Owen Wilson's character. I didn't care about Danny DeVito's character. I didn't care about Tiffany Haddish's character. I didn't really care about Rosario Dawson or her son. I didn't care about these people because the human characters were boring. And when they did try to make them interesting, they just brushed it off when they were talking about their grief and who they were. That stuff was interesting, but they had to push it away because they had to get back to all the CGI ghosts. There was no time to settle for a movie that was 2 hours long. I said it before and I'll say it again. What could have been done with the Haunted Mansion is Netflix or Disney Plus, more than likely, could have made it a TV series. The actual ghosts in the mansion are interesting. They're fascinating. Who are they? How did they get here? What is their background? We did touch on a little bit more in this movie compared to the last movie. I'll give them that. But I want to know more about them. I want to have a TV series kind of like Orange is the New Black, where, yeah, it's based in the prison and that's the story of the progression of it, but then you also get the background of these people and how they got into the positions that they are. I want that with the Haunted Mansion. We know they're in the mansion. I'm sick of the story of, hey, these people are here to release them from this curse and everything like that. I don't want that story. I want to know how they got here. And even if you do have the I need to release the curse story, Spread it out over a series or something. And then I want to see who these ghosts were. Oh, look, here's the two brothers that shot each other. Why? Why are they shooting at each other? Who's the caretaker and his dog? Why was he here? Why is he a ghost too? I want to know who these people are. They're more interesting than any of these human characters that we've had in 2 Haunted Mansion movies now. This is one of my favorite rides at Disney parks. And so, of course, I have a special love for it in the history behind it. But again, I think that's 2 movies in a row now that we really haven't gotten something that is worth the majesty that is the Haunted Mansion attraction as a whole. Like I said, what makes the Haunted Mansion ride so good is because you're with the ghosts. You find these ghosts fascinating. You are one with them. Human characters being in that story does not make that very grand. And that's the issue that plagues both of these films. As for my out of 10 rating, I mean, I gotta give it a 5.5 out of 10. It just was not up to snuff. It really wasn't. I'm trying to find a lot more fun things with it. Certain visuals were good. I do like how they put in a couple of the things from the ride, of course, but honestly, if you didn't know anything about the ride, this would be just a generic haunted house movie that's not very scary. And with the ride, it felt like they just kind of shoehorned in a couple things, and maybe like in the score you could hear a little bit of grim grinning ghosts. And you couldn't even hear like the actual upbeat version later like they do in the graveyard. At least they do that with the original movie. Like, I'm sorry, the original movie, 2003's, was not that great, but it was better than this. I can say it's better than this. Yeah, this was my little rant, rave review on 2023's Haunted Mansion, and yeah, I just wanted to give my thoughts out there, and I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are. If you guys have seen this yet, did you guys like this? Did you think of any of the points that I said? Or tell me what you guys' points that you think it's better than 2003's, it's worse than 2003's, they both suck, I don't know. Just let me know in the comments below. As always, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, or enemies, I guess, and subscribe to my channel for more movie reviews, Disney look backs, and anything else I can come up with. Thanks, everybody!